I truly believe that brain injury survivors and their families are some of the most resilient people in the world. But we don't always feel resilience when we're going through it, do we? I think sometimes it's hard to recognize our own resilience when we're just trying to get through each day. So today we're going to dive deeper into what is resilience and how do we recognize it in our own journey with our next brain injury community panel. There is always hope, and you are not alone. Hi, I'm Cristabelle Braden, and this is my brain injury podcast, Hope Survives. This is an uplifting podcast to bring hope to your darkest days. As a survivor of traumatic brain injury and multiple concussions and re-injuries, I know what it's like to struggle to find hope. I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did, and that's why over 10 years ago, I started an online community called Hope After Head Injury, which has now launched into a nonprofit organization called Hope Survives. Hope Survives envisions a world in which every survivor of brain injury and every member of their family are seen, loved, heard, valued, supported, uplifted, and never alone. This podcast is an extension of that, and I'd love to invite you to join along as we explore the realities of life with brain injury, with messages of encouragement, interviews with doctors and professionals, and survivor and family stories. No matter where you're at on your journey, there is always hope. With a little hope, you can make it through today. With a little faith, someday you'll get through the pain. Just a little love is enough to light the way through your darkest night. Hope survives. A little faith, a little love. Hope survives. Hey friends, welcome back to Hope Survives podcast. I am so excited to talk about resilience today. Something that I've learned over the years is that I don't always see my own resilience. It's so much easier to see it in someone else. I can look at friends or other members of our brain injury community and point out to them, wow, look at how far you've come. Look at how resilient you have been today. And I don't always see it in my own journey. So I want to encourage you to recognize your own resilience. Resilience is not always loud. It's not always bold. It doesn't always yell. Sometimes resilience whispers. Sometimes it's just that quiet strength to keep going. Maybe your resilience looks like getting out of bed on the tough days or learning to ask for help when you need help. Maybe for you, it's celebrating the small victories or making some of those tiny lifestyle changes we talked about in the last episode on neuroplasticity. We talked about how you can actually support your brain in its healing and recovery journey. And there's so much in our control that we can do. Dr. Michelle Eisenman encouraged us to take very small steps towards our sleep hygiene or towards our nutrition or towards our intentional movement or other things that we can do to support our brain's healing. It's amazing that the brain has neuroplasticity and that your brain is resilient. So our lifestyle can also reflect that resilience. So maybe your resilience looks like adapting to new changes or finding joy in the unexpected places. Maybe your resilience is simply continuing to grow despite the setbacks. Whatever it looks like for you, we are so glad you're here and are part of the Hope Survives community. At Hope Survives, we are here to support individuals and families affected by brain injury. And I'm so excited to share a couple announcements before we get into today's panel. So the first thing I'm thrilled to share is that we have finally opened our official Hope Survives online store. 100% of profits from our online store goes right into the nonprofit to support programs to empower those going through brain injuries and their families. This is a way to support the nonprofit's mission while also getting an item, whether it's a shirt or a hat, or we have these cool organic cotton tote bags that you can take grocery shopping, whatever it looks like for you to support. We are so grateful that you would consider that. And I want to share, we have some limited items only available this summer on resilience. So I'm actually wearing one of the shirts right now. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. If you're listening, you better go to hopesurvives.org/store because you can see it there, or check this out on YouTube. But this is one of our limited designs called Growing in Resilience. So we also have a matching organic, like I mentioned, organic cotton tote bag. So I'm going to show that to everyone here, if you can see it. And I love it because it says Growing in Resilience, and it says small steps every day, really small at the top. And so it's just that little reminder to take those small steps every day. So I'm going to be living in this shirt. This is one of our women's designs. We also have unisex designs, other resilience designs, but those are only available this summer. We also have some new logo shirts and some other things. But as a thank you to listening to this podcast, we have a discount code for you. So for our podcast listeners only, your discount is a 10% off. Your code is podcast10, all capitals. We will put this in the show notes for you, but you can get 10% off any order through July 31st, 2025. So we are grateful that you're listening, and we want to give you a 10% off of our online store as one of our ways of saying thank you. This podcast has grown so much in the last 5 years since it started. And when I first started Hope Survives podcast, we didn't even have Hope Survives nonprofit organization. So it's been such a beautiful journey to grow into this nonprofit. We are running monthly support groups, and they have been such beautiful times of encouragement. We have Hope After Head Injury twice a month for those who are affected by brain injury. We have Hope for Family, which I'm not allowed to go to because it's only for family members, not the individuals with the brain injury. And my mom actually helps to run that group. She's also on our board, as well as a professional that works in the healthcare field that's been working with survivors of brain injury. They run Hope for Family together. We also have Hope for Couples group. We have a group called Found Connection for survivors, specifically without support groups or without support networks in their own lives, as a way to connect and to find that support, as well as Renewed by Faith, which is our faith-based support group. We also have a ton of new workshops that are about to be announced. They're like this close, but I will give you a sneak preview. We're announcing Nutrition for Brain Injury Recovery workshop happening this July. So go to hopesurvives.org and check out our new workshops that our fall lineup is about to be announced. And I'm very excited about that. But before we get to today's panel, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor of this podcast, the Functional Neurology Center. The FNC has personalized neuro recovery programs that support so many different types of hope for those suffering from brain injuries, dysautonomia, vestibular, chronic pain, stroke, movement dysfunction, developmental disorders, PPPD, FND, and complex post-concussion. We are so thankful to Dr. Jeremy Schmo and the FNC for being our podcast sponsor, and you can find more about them at thefnc.com. Now, today's podcast has 3 incredible panelists. We have Rob, Christine, and Angie. And if you want to learn more about them, you can visit hopesurvives.org/podcast/110. You can see their bios there on our podcast page. And I'm so grateful. They're about to introduce themselves, so they'll do a better job sharing some of their journey and their story. And I'm so grateful for them. We've had some great feedback about these panels, so they are something we're going to be continuing here on the podcast. As always, if you have any thoughts or questions, please email hi@hopesurvives.org, and we would love to hear any feedback, questions, or even if you just need some encouragement, send us an email. We are here for you. You are not alone, and you are more resilient than you know. So thank you for being here. Let's grow in resilience together every day. And let's get into today's brain injury community panel. Today, I am thrilled to introduce our panelists here on today's Hope Survives community panel on resilience. This is our third brain injury community panel, and we have some incredible panelists that are part of our Hope Survives community. We have Rob, Christine, and Angie. So, first of all, I just want to thank the three of you for taking your time to come here today. And we're going to just start with a brief introduction of your personal brain injury journey and what brought you to this panel. So, Rob, would you go first for us?
Sure. Thanks for having me on today. I had my brain injury almost 5 years ago. It was in July of just when the pandemic started. So it was uncharted territory in a lot of areas for me. I spent my entire first couple years in bed trying to find purpose for my injury. So that's what led me to do a podcast, to write a book, to find Hope Survives. And as soon as I found Hope Survives, I said, "Oh yeah, this is what I want to be a part of." So that's what brought me here.
Well, Rob, we are grateful to have you part of our community.
Thank you.
And yeah, like Rob has his own podcast and you're in a book, and I just think that's incredible. I love what you've been doing, and we're so thankful to have your perspective here today, and also part of our Hope Ambassador team leadership.
Thank you.
So we're really thankful to have you. All right, Christine, would you like to share next?
Thank you. Thank you, Cristabelle. Hi, everybody, my fellow tribe members, as I like to call them. I'm Christine. How I became inducted into the TBI tribe has happened about, I would say, maybe 6.5 years ago. Um, and through an car accident. And through that, I'm still learning, got a chance to meet people like you, who I didn't know would mean so much, but yes. And learning day by day. And my journey starts every day anew. So looking forward to talking more.
Thank you, Christine. All right, Angie, would you share a brief overview of your journey?
Start with explaining that prior to being injured, I spent most of my life in school studying psychology and the movement of the body. So I was like equipping myself, unbeknownst for what my body was going to go through. So about 6.5 years, 7 years ago, I was also, it was an auto bicycle accident. I was riding a bike when I was ran over by an automobile. And since then, I've thankfully used the things that I had been trained in before to recover, learning how to talk again, walk again, like how to do everything again. In that desperate kind of post-injury processing, you know what I mean, you guys know. I found the hope and got plugged in and been going ever since. I think it's been like 3 years.
Well, Angie, we're so glad to have you part of our community. And thank you all three for sharing just a little overview of your journeys. I know that it's hard to kind of explain brain injury in a very short period of time because there's so much complexity to the journey. And today our topic is resilience. So before we get into like your personal experience with resilience, my first question for you is just simply, how do you define resilience? Like, how would you just define it? It could be in the context of brain injury or in general. So, Angie, would you share first?
So I have a lot of teachers or leaders I look up to as role models. And one of my favorite teachers she was a runner who was like the forefront of Brooks running brand. Anyways, her name is Gabe Greenwald, and she says that bravery is never stopping. Never stop doing what makes you feel alive. And I feel like resilience is when you face resistance over and over again to bravery and choosing the bravery again and again. So yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I appreciate that you brought in two concepts. Number one, that there's some resistance, and number two, that we need to choose bravery. I think that's really beautiful. So thank you, Angie. Rob, would you share next? How do you define resilience?
I define it this way. I have, since my accident, I have a migraine that it just never goes away. So it's hard. It's hard to sit here in front of you with a smile every day. But I decided from day one that I wasn't going to let obstacles define who I am. I was going to tell the obstacles they got to go away. So I put a smile on my face every morning and I push through the pain. And that's the only way that I know to get through it. People look at me and they'll say, "How can you smile when you're in constant pain?" It's not easy. And there's days that I can't put a smile on. But I chose, it's a choice to me. It's a choice that you just have to make and say, I'm going to take control.
Thank you, Rob. I again love the reminder that there is an element of choice to this. And because we can't choose our brain injury, right? There's so many things we can't control. And learning how to take hold of maybe some small little choices we can make each day is beautiful. So, all right, Miss Christine, how do you define resilience?
That's a good question. Um, for me, I would always think prior to my accident that, like, whatever happens, you just keep going, you keep going. However, I've had a new perspective, and adding on to that, that it is a choice, it is keep going, but it also is allowing time to cry, allowing time to miss, allowing time to have those to have those emotions, as well as keep going on and finding a new path.
That's so good. I just feel like I want to sit in that for a second. Like allowing yourself to cry is resilience, right? So many people think that resilience is like pushing. And what if resilience isn't the push, but what if it's the grace, right? So, my next question is when we're finding our way through brain injury, we don't always feel resilient because we're just trying to keep going. We can look back and say, I guess I was resilient, but at the time, you don't always feel that way. So, I guess my question for you in your brain injury journey, when did you realize that you had become resilient? So, Rob, let's go with you first.
I think for me, it was the fact that people kept saying, "How are you still doing this? How are you still doing that?" I did lose a lot. I had to give up. I made cakes on the side and I just couldn't do it anymore because of anxiety. But I think once I kept hearing that over and over again. I finally realized I can do this. I can get through this because I've been doing it and I just didn't realize I was doing it because of that choice I made from day one. I'm like, initially you thought, this is it. I'm gone. But, the first couple nights you laid in bed, you couldn't sleep and you're going, does it ever get better? And then after, a couple of weeks goes by and you're going, it's not getting better. I've got to make a change. I have to make a choice to say I am stronger than my injury. So I think it's a longer answer to your short question.
No, that's a great answer. And I think that it's interesting that it was pointed out to you by others that you were resilient, that it wasn't something you like noticed about yourself.
Yeah.
And so, how did you go about like accepting that?
It was hard. I, I prayed every day. I prayed, God, give me a purpose for this pain. And even at work, I would tell people, there's a reason that I'm going through this. I could either sit back and just say, this is my life and it doesn't get any better than this. But I turn that, why did this happen to me, into how can I use this to serve others? Because I felt so alone, and you'd cry yourself to sleep at night. I'm sure you guys have been there. Um, and I didn't want those tears to be for no reason at all. And I thought, if I'm feeling this, others are feeling this. So what can I do? How can I use this?
Thank you, Rob. And thank you for your honesty in that. Because, we can sit here with some smiles and talk about it and, years later, right? But
Uh-huh.
the truth is, it's a process to get there and to get to where we are. And if somebody's listening to this and is like, well, that's really good for you, but I'm in pain. It's like, I love that the reminder that that's part of resilience, right? Like pain is part of it. It's part of the
Uh-huh.
process. And thank you for sharing about your prayers. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank
So,
you.
Christine, how about you? When did you realize that you'd become resilient?
For me, the honest thing is I'm still going through that journey and rediscovering myself and rediscovering what can Christine do. And I think in that process, when finding our way through brain injury, I think something that's a part of it that we sometimes forget is the mental health and the emotional piece that goes into it that sometimes blocks your way of knowing you're okay, kiddo. For me, it was going through the depression, the anxiety, all of those things that blocked. You're all right, kid. You're not all right. Let me take that back. Your journey into newness is happening. It's okay. Your new clothes are fitting you spiritually, physically, emotionally, and you're walking in it. It might not feel like it, but it's okay to breathe, and it's okay to say, "Hey, God, I'm not okay, and I'm sad, and I'm angry, I'm disappointed." And through that honesty, that's when the um, acknowledgement comes slowly.
That's so beautiful. I love like you said something about a journey to newness. How did you phrase that? However you phrase that. Beautiful. Yeah.
The journey through newness
Yeah.
on a daily basis.
Yeah. And we talked a couple months ago here about ambiguous loss and grief. That was intentionally a conversation we had before we're talking about resilience, because I think you kind of have to go through that grieving process to get to a place where you're able to accept and move forward into the newness. But first, you might have to grieve the oldness. Yeah, I don't know how else to say that, but thank you, Christine. All right, Angie, when did you realize you'd become resilient?
Well, I've always described myself as a gritty person, even from a young age. Like, my parents are divorced, I've been through abuse, neglect, different things. And I worked through it. I didn't push it down, I processed it all, and I've just gone through it. And so going through my injuries was like, it reaffirmed my grittiness or resilience. And then more recently, I've dealt with the idea of being disabled, and I have to bring all those coping mechanisms up that I've had forever. And I just realized me and I've been through a lot of stuff. Sorry, here's a lot of stuff. And I have what it takes. I can do it. It's never easy. It's never something I want to go through, but I've got the tools I need because I'm gritty or resilient.
Thank you so much, Angie, for sharing. What
Mm.
are some of those tools that have helped you?
So my favorite ones will be really hard to describe on the podcast, but the coping mechanisms you can use to calm your nervous system. So like going outside and grounding by being in your bare feet, or just laying in the grass. Or like I like to gardening, or using stones or butterfly hug. Different holistic ways of allowing the earth and the world around you to help bring you back, you know?
Yeah, I mean, those are so good for your nervous system. Like the
Yeah.
autonomic nervous system can really be affected, and those grounding tools, they are hard to describe on a podcast, but
Yeah.
how would you describe that on times that you don't do them regularly, how you feel versus when you are doing them regularly?
I was just explaining this 2 days ago, but I feel like when I'm not grounded, it's similar to the static you see on like a television screen or hear on the radio when you're not tuned in, you know? And I feel like when I'm trying to pay more attention and be grounded, whether it's physically grounded or grounded using coping mechanisms or reading my Bible or journaling, it's a clearer picture, you know?
Yeah, that's really beautiful that it adds clarity. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think so many times we have that brain fog right after
Mm-hmm.
brain injury. It's like that brain fog is so real. And it's like hard to even find any way for that to let up.
Mm-hmm.
And grounding and deep breathing and nervous system, like autonomic, activating your autonomic nervous system can really be helpful, or
Yeah.
deactivating it, getting into that
Yeah, deactivating.
parasympathetic
Yes.
state. Yeah, that's good, Angie. Thank you. Christine, what are some tools that have helped you connect with resilience?
Some of the tools has been, and I'm going to be honest, and it's okay to be honest because that's a part of the journey. um, some of them have not been all that helpful for me. They may have been helpful for other people. So finding what works for yourself is extremely important without feeling guilty of, oh, I should have tried this, I should have tried that, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Um, shoulda, coulda, woulda adds just to different space in your head. And as a TBI survivor, you need all the space you can get. So let's get shoulda, coulda, woulda out of there. But I think one of the things is let's try it has been a phrase that I have been extremely scared to live out loud. But I tried it. I tried Christian yoga. I tried trauma yoga. I tried cooking again. So I tried some of the tools unbeknownst to me, as well as rediscovering my voice in journaling, only because that were tools that I thought I could never use again. Um, so finding those tools and also turning it around to help others in similar situations like myself has been a humbling and rewarding tool and helped me to bridge the part of me that I said goodbye to. Unbeknownst to me, I said goodbye to it, but I don't think God did. So I think all those things of rediscovering and putting into action the phrase of let's try it with stabilizing my nervous system and trying to even embrace the parts that I was terrified of. That has been a tool as well.
That's so encouraging. Thank you for sharing, Christine. I love the encouragement to try, but also to realize that if something doesn't work for you, to not try and force it, right? Like different things work for different people. So, Rob, what about you? What are some tools that have helped you?
One thing that helps me is to keep my mind occupied, because when I'm quiet and there's nothing going on, that's when I'm thinking about what I'm going through, as far as the pain, I should say. Behind me is the piano. I play that any chance that I get. Doing my podcast, listening to other people share their stories with me, and having that sense of community, that helps take my mind off of it quite a bit. And singing, I love to sing. So I listen to music just about all day long.
I love that, Rob. I can relate to that. So,
Yes. Yeah, you know what
yeah,
I'm talking about.
yeah. And the connecting with others too. I
Hmm.
think I mean, we can't have our only source of resilience be from connecting to others, because what if they're not available, or what if someone hurts our
Right.
feelings, or right? But
Right.
there is also something to that connection. That's why we do support groups in Hope Survives, like giving people a sense of community. Because having someone else just say, like, hey, you're not alone, I get it. Like, there's power in that.
Absolutely.
So, this is my next question. How do you embrace new dreams after brain injury while also honoring space for what came before? So, Christine, let's go to you first.
That's I like that question. If you had asked that question after my accident, I would have just burst out into tears. So I think that leads into part of, the answer is allowing space for the tears, because the tears have their own language. And that's how you honor the space, but also honoring or merging or rediscovering. Like probably a geek at heart, so sort of like that. Remember the Bionic Woman or Steve Austin, how they would always say, "We will rebuild it. We will rebuild it." It's almost like you're rebuilding from a brain injury, and honoring space is saying, I'm honoring what you've gone through, the pain, the daily pain, the physical pain, the loss, not just of jobs, income, whatever it may be, um, but the loss of what took you years to build. You're honoring that, and also recognizing, leaving space for the I do not know. But God, please hold me as I walk through these steps, because it's kind of sucky steps right now. So help me to walk through them and rediscover laughter, rediscover real smiles, and not the fake smile that sometimes we have to put on. And rediscovering new joy. And it might be a new job, it might be new support groups, new people. So I think the merging of the two is how I honor space.
Thank you so much for sharing, Christine. Angie, what about you? How do you embrace new dreams after brain injury while also honoring space for what came before?
It's an interesting question for me to answer. Because my slogan, quote unquote slogan, for my life has always been to meet people in the trenches of life with God's love. And I felt like I've lived in a lot of trenches. And before I was injured, I knew that I wanted to be in the trenches, to love people. And this is another trench, And so I feel like it's a different trench, but it's still the same, goal.
Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
Rob, how do you embrace new dreams after brain injury while honoring space for what came before?
For me, embracing things have always been hard. It, it's hard to say, gosh, this is something that I should do or want to do, or it's hard to dream, because you get used to things failing when you have a brain injury. You know, where did I put my keys? Where's my phone? Oh, it's in my hand. You're going through all those emotions. So, I mean, just to be real, it's hard to embrace it. But once you do embrace it, I'm all in. Just like when you asked me to join, the Hope Survives, I thought, gosh, could I do this? And you must have saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. So I really prayed on it and thought about it. And I thought, you know what? If someone else saw something in me that I didn't see, there has to be something there. There's at least a seed there that I can expound on. So that's one way that I do it is I really give everything a lot of consideration before I jump full force into it. Now, as far as honoring, what it was, like the book that I wrote, I initially wanted to write it just about my brain injury. And it was more or less for me to heal through. But I also wanted it to be a tool for others to say, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's brighter days ahead. And as I was writing this, I kept thinking of all the other traumas that I've lived through, through childhood traumas that people don't like to talk about. And I kept thinking, why do these keep popping in my head? And I'm like, God, I'm trying to write a book here. Why you keep reminding me of all these things? And then it finally dawned on me, well, hello, dummy. He's wanting you to help others. So I'm like, okay. So I wrote about him and put him in my book. So that's how I honored myself, forgave myself for things that wasn't even my fault. So that's how I honored that.
I love that, Rob.
Thank you.
So, what have been some challenges in your brain injury journey that you've now learned from? And if you want to share, what have you learned through those challenges? So, Rob, can we stick with you here?
Sure. Oh gosh, many, many challenges. Um, One thing that I've learned is that every day is a new day, even though my brain still thinks like it was yesterday. At our house, the joke is, um, you always say that was yesterday, no matter if it was 6 months ago or it was yesterday. So the cognitive stuff is the hard thing to get through. Um, but I've learned to trust my wife. I listen to her, and it's not easy because we always think we're right, but we're not always right. So I just trust whatever she says. We've been married almost 2 8 years. Sorry, because my numbers come out weird, but we've been married almost 2 8 years, and I think she's been wrong once in all that time. So it's easy for me to trust her. When she says something is something, I believe it. So getting through all those cognitive things, that was the hard part.
It's great you have that support system. Not everyone has that.
I
So,
know.
having a support system that is trustworthy,
Yeah.
and that's really beautiful that you do have that. Some people don't, right? And so it's
Right.
like being able to overcome challenges, like it looks different for each person. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
Christine, what about you? What have been some challenges in your brain injury journey that you've learned from?
I think similar to what Rob had said and probably what Angie has gone through, we all have gone through. Sometimes in my head, my brain thinks it's right all the time. And things look a whole lot different when the thoughts that are captured in my head, when I try to implement them, I'm like, wow, that looked different in my head. And that's a simple phrase that we say all the time. But for me, for what I have noticed is my brain is not right all the time. And sometimes I believe it to be right. And is that cognitive? Yes. Did I know it was cognitive? No. Did I think that everything worked normal, and everything is okay? Yes. But realizing that the cognitive part is different The fatigue is extremely challenging, as well as the speech. Now I'm holding up now for these few moments of conversation, but towards the end or even later today, I will be like Play-Doh and be like, womp, womp, womp. So, those challenging things is something that I've had to learn not to try and dominate, because I will lose if I keep saying, I can fight you, brain. I can fight you. So acknowledging that, okay, today's not a good day, although I had 5 things planned. I might get 1 done or I might get none. So learning from that is helpful, and it's still a process.
Thank you, Christine. Angie, what about you? What have you learned?
Mine kind of goes with Rob's a little bit upset. I'll explain. So, another like nervous system coping tool that I do a lot is I give myself a hug, like probably every day. Someone else I also consider a teacher once said that the body teaches the mind what is true. So if I can tell myself that I'm here, that you're not alone, that I love you, I think that goes a long way with my healing. So all that to say, long story, is I have learned that I'm here for myself and I'm not going anywhere. And there's been times in my recovery where I didn't recognize the girl in the mirror. And I was like, where did I go? And as I recover more, I see myself coming back to the forefront. I don't think I ever left, but to the forefront. And I just remind myself that I'm not leaving. Other people may leave, but I'm not going anywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, showing up for yourself. That's so important. And that goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, that resilience is really a choice, right? Like you can choose resilience, just like you can choose hope. We talk about that a lot at Hope Survives, that hope is not positive thinking, right? It's making a choice that in the hard times and through the dark, we're going to choose hope and choose to step forward even when it's hard. So, for my next question, I wanted to ask you about setbacks. I know in my personal journey with brain injury, setbacks have been a really big part of it. I've had multiple re injuries, but then also just like even the day to day of symptom flare ups, where like one day I might feel okay, the next day, like I can't do anything, or like you try to do an event and it takes forever to recover. So what have setbacks looked like in your journey, and how do you move through those setbacks, whether it was like a big re injury or whether it's been like the ebbs and flows of the journey? What do setbacks look like for you? So, Christine, let's start with you.
Setbacks for me have looked a lot like, I don't want to say things not going as planned, but setbacks have been disappointments. And I'm going to say anger that my body, my brain has not responded the way I thought it would be, or do. I remember when my accident happened and I said, oh, wow. Well, I don't have a car that, and I don't think it's safe for me to drive right now, but let's see. Oh, I guess I started planning on taking the train to work the very next day. Unbeknownst to me, stayed in the hospital for a little while and rehab and all that stuff. So I think the setbacks have been the physical that led to something that we sometimes are ashamed to talk about, and that is, it has led to mental health. It has led to depression. It has led to anxiety. It has led to PTSD. And sometimes that the setback is not talking about it and giving into the shame. So letting go of the shame and mentioning it is a way to help myself instead of feeding darkness. I'm illuminating sunshine by talking about it.
Christine, you radiate sunshine. You just do. That's just like I love that. I love your laugh. I just love your joy that you carry. But I know that's a joy that's been born through pain, right? Like true joy, I think, coexists with an element of sadness. I think joy is stronger when you have the opposite. And I think you're a beautiful example of that. So thank you for sharing. Rob, let's go to you next. Have setbacks been part of your journey, and how do you move through them?
Gosh, my biggest setback is when I get mad at myself. I get mad at myself all the time when I do something stupid. And of course, my wife is quick to say, "You're not stupid. Don't say that. I don't want to hear that ever again." But I will argue with myself because I should know how to do X, Y, Z, whatever that might be. And my wife is very quick to say, "No, you have a brain injury. Hello, things are not the same as it used to be." So she reels me back in. But whenever I really get down on myself, I can beat myself up like nobody's business. But I'm the same person who everybody that comes to me with their problems, I'm finding the silver lining. And I know sometimes they get so mad because they're like, "Can you just not be positive for 5 seconds?" It's like, if you just knew the thoughts that were going on in my head, because I'm having a real battle in my head right now. But let's talk about your problem.
But isn't it easier to like give advice to others than to take it for yourself?
Yes. I've given some really great advice before that I should take myself, and I don't listen to myself.
Yeah. Oh,
And then
me too.
people are quick to turn it back to you, like, "Well, what about blah, blah, blah?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that does kind of make sense now that you've said it."
Yeah. I'll have to often say to myself, like, okay, what would I say to a friend who's having this kind of thing? Because I struggle with negative self-talk very strongly. And I sometimes have to like perspective out myself of, okay, how would I encourage someone else in this situation and then actually say that to myself? And that's not always easy to do, but it's so easy for me to encourage my friend because I see all the beautiful things about them. But then for myself, I just see my flaws. I have a hard time seeing that. Anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate that you bring up that your setbacks, that's what that has to do with that. I think that's a really, really good example and not something that I've really thought about as a setback. So I appreciate that, Rob. I like your perspective.
Thank you.
All right, Angie, have setbacks played a role in your journey and how do you move through them?
So last year around January, I believe, I broke my leg. And for me, my mobility and my coordination are probably the main symptoms of my brain injury. So it's probably just a matter of time before I broke something, but I did. And they wanted to do surgery, and I definitely didn't want that. And I was very concerned about how this would slow the progress to my recovery. But the way I worked through it was I did a lot of research into diet, exercise. I asked for a lot of help from people I know are very proficient in healing from broken bones. Oh, and every day I put my hand on my leg and I said, I will do whatever I have to do, even if it's surgery, to make sure you're okay. And I healed myself, and the doctors were like, wild. But I did, and I need surgery, and in like a month, that big boot thing came off, and It was cool. So what I learned through my setbacks was ask for help and do good by yourself. Do your best. Don't let yourself down, you know?
That's so beautiful. I love that you asked for help from other people that you knew you couldn't do it on your own, right? Like finding people that could help you with fitness and nutrition. And I think that's really cool. Thank you for sharing that. It probably didn't always feel good every day, but being able to work through that. So, my next question, we're coming down towards the end of our time here, so I just have a couple more. But this is to talk to someone who doesn't feel resilience. Think of the person who turned this podcast on because they're like, I don't feel resilient. I'm in survival mode. I can't just get through each day. And maybe they're crying listening to this, feeling like they can't get through their day, or maybe they're comparing themselves to you guys thinking, wow, they're so put together. How do they have brain injuries? So think of that person who's in survival mode, who's struggling. What do you recommend to lead them on the path toward resilience? Rob, let's go with you first.
I always say this: it's okay to not be okay. Every day's not going to be a bowl of cherries, and we all know that. I mean, it's just called reality. But you don't have to get through an entire day. It's a journey, you know, and every journey doesn't start by getting to the end right away. You take it one moment at a time, one day, 1 hour, 1 minute, whatever, until you get to the end. Then you eventually get through the whole day, and you're like, wow, I survived today, and I did okay by myself. Tomorrow we'll do better. And if you don't do okay today, guess what? Tomorrow's another day. Tomorrow's another chance to get through another day. So just keep pressing on. And if you need someone to talk to, reach out to somebody. I have never found that I have messaged someone, called them, texted them, or whatever, and said, you know what, I'm having a really bad day. And I've always been greeted with, what's going on? So sometimes just hearing someone listen to you, it really helps. That's what I would recommend.
Thanks, Rob. All right, Angie, what would you say to someone who's in survival mode in their brain injury?
What was most influential to me was learning about the depth of neurons, how many your brain creates a day, and neurogenesis, so how to help your body create more brain cells, and then neuroplasticity, which is the connection of brain cells. So remembering or relearning how to eat an apple, or, different functions you might have lost that you need to rewire. So that's just science. If you bring in the God, understanding that God created our bodies to do these magical things where you can just create new brain cells and new rewiring. And it's amazing. I think our brain creates 1,000 neurons a day. That's amazing. That's the science. And I think that the God, our creator, made us that way. It's like, so take hope, take courage, have hope.
Thanks, Angie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that reminder. Like neuroplasticity, I think is so tied into resilience because our heart and soul is resilient, but so is our brain, right? Like there is hope for healing. And thank you for that reminder. So, Christine, what would you share to someone in survival mode?
I would share to that 1, 2, 3, whoever, that one person who may be in survival mode. I remember reflecting on my journey of survival mode And sometimes I am still in survival mode, but the way to come out of that is similar to what everyone has said here today, is acknowledging it without judging it. Acknowledging it without judging it. And it's okay to seek help from friends, from your support group. And your support may not come from family. It may come from your newfound family support, like the support we have here. So I also remember saying, oh my goodness, the living living is taking too long and death seems too short. And I speak to that person who may have thought that and saying, living is worth it with the support, with discovering your newness. So the survival leads to living. So reach out to whoever your support is without shame.
Thank you, Christine. And I love that reminder that your support might not be your family necessarily, right? Everyone's support system looks different. Everyone's community looks different. And at Hope Survives, we are here. Like, that's what we're here for. You can literally email us, pour your heart out to us, hi@hopesurvives.org. We'd love to connect you with others that are going through a similar journey. So we are getting to the end of our time. We only have time for one more question, which is our final words of hope. Before we do, I just want to say you three are a special, special people. This has been so beautiful. And like, I'm so encouraged right now just hearing all three of you share. Thank you for taking your time. So, if you could share your final words of hope, one message for survivors and families going through brain injury, what would it be? Let's start with Angie, then Christine, and then Rob will bring us home.
One of my favorite words is an African proverb. It's Ubuntu. It means we are able, together we are able. And it just reminds me that we can overcome whatever burdens or obstacles are in our way uniquely because of our brain injuries or otherwise by asking for help from others and from ourselves. That's all.
Thank you, Angie. Christine, what's your final words of hope?
My final words of hope would be that you can rediscover joy again. And it may come in a different package. So embrace the package. Wrap it how you want to wrap it instead of what the world, what you coulda, shoulda, woulda voices tell you how to embrace or unwrap that package. Embrace the joy and discover the newness in unwrapping a new package. That's it.
I love that. Discover. What a good word. And rediscover, right? That sometimes we're rediscovering things we knew before, and sometimes we're discovering something brand new. I love it. All right, Rob, what you got for us?
Well, kind of a little stealing off of what she just said, but I want to use the word repurpose. When I first had my brain injury, I really mourned what I lost. And sometimes I do still see glimpses of what was there. But you know what? Sometimes, if you ever watch like HGTV or the remodeling shows, they'll take and repurpose something. Doesn't mean that it doesn't still work. Sometimes you can repurpose something that's even more beautiful than it was. And it's even got a new use. So yeah, I do miss who I was, but I have a new use now. God doesn't make junk. And if you let him, he can take and make something beautiful out of your injuries. I have more friends now than I ever had prior to my brain injury. And yes, I lost a lot of friends after my brain injury, but that's okay because now I have people that understand me, believe in me, love me for who I am. So it's okay. I love who I am now. It took me a long time to get there, but you can get there. And there's these beautiful people here that can help you. Support groups. There are support groups out there. I will caution you to not find one that's toxic because I've been in some toxic groups, but make sure you find one that surrounds you with love, hope, and understanding. If you do that, that's already half the battle right there.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for that reminder for community. And just all of you. I feel like this was kind of like a sacred space here for this hour, and it was so beautiful. So thank you, Rob, Christine, Angie, for taking your time to share and give of your heart for those listening. And for everyone who took an hour to listen, thank you. It's a privilege for you to spend your precious cognitive energy here with us at Hope Survives podcast. We hope to see you at our Zoom groups as part of our workshops, at our programs. And we just want you to know you're not alone and you're more resilient than you think. So till next time. Thanks for tuning in to Hope Survives podcast. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, and would love for you to consider leaving us a rating or a review. Check out hopesurvives.org for more. We'll see you next time, and remember, there is always hope.